Recording study. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to our next Tech Connect event. Today, it's a great honor to have Sascha here with us. He is going to show you view transition API and scroll-driven animations. So let us give him a big warm welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here today. So, let's directly dive in. Today we want to talk about a topic that is that I'm very passionate about: view transitions and scroll-driven animations, and how they will affect our web development experience in the future or just today. So at first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Sascha Lehmann. I'm a consultant at Thinktecture. We are a consulting agency based in Karlsruhe, and I am a front-end architect and an Angular expert, and also support our customers with UI UX designs or reviews of design systems for their problems on a daily basis. So, at first, some clarification before we dive into the topic itself. What is cross-platform or hybrid app development so far? So we need that we have a common sense of what this means for us. So in the past, we had these two types of programming specificities. So in the first part, we have the native development. So native means we develop our applications for specific platforms. So for Android, for iOS, for Windows. And on the other hand, we have our beloved web development space where we choose from a wide variety of different frameworks: CSS, plain, JavaScript, HTML, all the nice things you can imagine. So, and now there's also this space in between. This is where the cross or hybrid part comes in. We have this cross part where we have the capability to develop some kind of application within our web space and package it for the corresponding platform like iOS, Android, and so on. With the help of different frameworks, we can achieve this goal. We have Capacitor or Electron to package our applications for the mobile or the desktop world, and we also have this technology of PWAs. So we don't exactly have to package them, but this technology makes our web applications installable on your browser, on your local machine. So you, within the browser, you see a little icon up in the URL bar that indicates you that this app is installable. You can put it on your home screen, and it behaves like an app you directly installed. You have push notifications, you have message indicators, and so on. It's a very cool tech. If you want to dive in, feel free to investigate on that topic. It's very cool, and in my opinion, it's very underrated in our common tech space. So now that's out of the way, what is the actual problem view transitions and scroll-driven animations want to solve? So when it comes to the development space of native developers, they always had an advantage over the web developers, because native developers always have some kind of native APIs they had specific for their platform, and for example, push notifications, file system access, and so on. And in the past, these were things we web developers can't imagine having off. So there was an initiative of the browser vendors, like for example, Google, Apple, and Microsoft. They came together and wanted to close this gap, and the result was Project Fugu. Project Fugu is a project that wants to make the web space more native and enhance the web space with new APIs in our browsers and in to make the web more native. So in the past, we got the push API, we got the file system access API, the asynchronous clipboard API, and so on, and many more. And there are also many more around the corner waiting for the implementation in our today's browsers. So if you want to dive in this topic, feel free to follow the link. There's a current list of APIs that will be considered to be implemented or are currently in a development state. So it's a lot of there are a lot of new and nice things around the corner, and we can be happy to have in the future. So one thing of this in this kind of area was also the view transition API, because the native developers in terms of animations always had a big advantage over us web developers. When we have a look at these little animations, you may think that this could be also achieved within the web space, but if you think in terms of DOM and also the document object model we have in our browsers or in our web space we are tied to, it can be quite cumbersome to achieve such animations. In this term, they are called container transforms. So we have these little containers, for example, a card, or these smaller cards here that transform all over the screen. When we think about achieving that within the DOM, we need to keep in mind that we have the actual element. We need to extract it out of the DOM. So maybe with position absolute, we need to transform it over the complete viewport size. That might seem easy at the first glance, but when it comes to routing in the background, so we switching context within our application, that could be quite cumbersome, because we have this before state, we have an after state, before the routing, after the routing within our single page applications. And when we want to achieve such kind of animations, we need to have this two states before and after always in the current state and transition between them. And this is a quite nasty task to achieve if you want it to do it on your own. And that's where the view transition API is there to help us. So let's have a look at the view transition API. Currently, it's not in the new baseline of the common web stack models. So currently it's supported in Chrome and Safari. Firefox is still a missing piece, but when the rumors are true, it could be, this little gap could be closed within the first quarter of this year or the second quarter of this year, to have the full baseline compatibility. So let's hope that the Firefox developers will support us in this little technical gap, but don't feel, but just feel free to use it just today, because the adoption of Chrome and Safari is quite large enough to try it within your local projects, and the benefits are really astonishing. So let's have a look how we start a view transition. In the first place, we just need one simple line of JavaScript, and this line are you seeing here today. So we have the document within our JavaScript space, and we get a new API or a new API call for the view transition, start view transition. And this function call accepts a callback function. I will come back to that later, what this callback does. But this is the only piece of JavaScript you need to write within your application to trigger a view transition. Everything besides that is purely done with CSS. So, and what does this kind of API trigger in the background? So how does the view transition actually work? So the view transition starts when you trigger it with the corresponding start view transition call of the API, and in the background, the browser takes a snapshot of the current view that the user sees at this point and freezes the whole application. Um, don't don't fear the word freeze and that kind. The view transitions are very, very quick, and you don't have to think about any longer freezes. So the user might think, oh, is the application also not responding or something like that. That is out of the way. They are very quick. So at first glance, the browser takes a screenshot of the first of the current view. Then in the background, the routing is done. So the transition between the before DOM state and the after DOM state I mentioned earlier, that is quite cumbersome to achieve. So maybe some routing takes place and we have this after view. So when the routing is done, the DOM changes are fulfilled. The browser takes another snapshot, but in this case, it's a live view. I will also come back to that, what that means in the later part. So we have these two kinds of snapshots. And what the browser then does when both snapshots are taken, it crossfades them. That's default behavior view transition does for us. So it's quite interesting to see that they actually take pictures of the current DOM state and transition them and transition between DOM states. So, and how is how is it achieved that we can take control of that view transition just with CSS? To take control with CSS, we need some DOM elements we can manipulate with CSS rules. So a view transition also creates some pseudo DOM tree elements. We see here we have a view transition element, view transition root, group, image pair with the old and new images within. And when we take a look what each of this element does, the first view transition root element is just a root element for the whole transition group. The root element, the group is also another layering of that grouping. And we have this image pair of the old and new shot I mentioned earlier. And that's all. So we just have this few DOM elements that are visible in our DOM, and we can manipulate them. So what we have to keep in mind is that these DOM elements, these pseudo elements, are actually pictures. So we have to take the note that we can apply background colors to them because they are not an actual DOM element. So we have an image element. So they are just they behave like images, and we also have to think about that these pseudo elements sit on top every other element in our DOM tree. So when we think of the DOM element or the DOM itself, we have the HTML element, then the header, the body elements follow along, and the view transition elements sit directly under the HTML DOM elements, so they sit above every other element. So we have to keep in mind that maybe we declared some CSS properties later on in some later following elements, and they are not declared in the scope because the view transitions are above every other element. That is the thing we have to keep in mind. So enough the talking. Let's have a look at how view transition actually can look like. So on the left-hand side, I have a little demo app. On the left-hand side, we have a fully functional version of that app without any kind of view transitions within. So we have this navigation between different sections. The app is totally functional, but there's a lot of more feeling or user experience you can add to that kind of app when you use some sort of animation to transition between the different states. On the right side, on the other hand, we have the app with view transitions. So I have added some advanced view transitions here, so we can have a little look there. So we have this nice container transform on the right-hand side. When I dive into the details, the image enlarges over the screen, some additional things happen later on. So to investigate this view transition a little bit better, we can just slow it down. We have the possibility to slow animations down when we increase the animation duration in our CSS. That is one solution, but it has the caveat that maybe we just forget about that we added the increased the animation duration, and we have to also manipulate our code manually. But there's a little helper within the Chrome or in our browser developer tools. In the Chrome browser, for example, we can hit Command Shift P, and we have this little command palette that pops up. It's similar to the command panel that we get in VS Code, for example, and we can type here animation to show the animations panel. And the animations panel is a very nice tool to have when you develop animations of every kind, not just for view transitions, also when you have regular CSS or JavaScript-based animations. The panel records every animation type, and you have also full control over the animation. We will see that soon. So in this case, the animation speed is set to 100%. When I move it, put it down to 10%, and also start the animation, we see it is much slower, and we can investigate the animation in more detail. So it's a very helpful tool to create very detailed and orchestrate the animation in a very detailed way. So, and in this kind, we have different kind of forward and backward animations. And to investigate a animation in more detail, we just can hit this little stop button, then trigger our animation, and then we get this little animation frame. And within this animation frame, we see now every animation, CSS-based or code-based animation that is happening, when it's happening, how long the duration is, and we have this little time slider here we can pull back and forth. So we have a very detailed way to investigate and develop or debug our animations. So in this case, we see on the upper hand here in the DOM tree the earlier mentioned pseudo elements, the view transition name. So with here are the view transition elements, and when we just hit the animation and let it finish, we see that the pseudo elements only exist during the time the animation takes place. So when I do another view transition, we see it pop up in the upper corner, and when the animation ends, it disappears again. So this kind of animations are also advanced. When we have a look at the detail grade of the animation, I will investigate the panel a bit more. We see that there's not only one animation that or one image group, so there are more than one group. So you also have the possibility to slice up your different animation pieces in multiple pieces, and you don't have to transition the whole DOM or the whole screen that you have. So you can slice up these different pieces. So that's the next point I wanted to talk about, the actual slicing. But as a default, the view transition does this crossfade. So in the left example, there are non-transition enabled at all. So if I add it to the application, I have an Angular application, and within Angular applications, they have a very nice integration for view transitions. So in this router part here, I just have to add a new configuration function with view transitions, and I hit save here, and I just have the view transitions enabled from the framework by default when every time routing happens. So in this case, I route from home to the workout planner, and we see a subtle crossfade there. It's not very noticeable. So when we slow it down here, we also open up the animations panel. The animations panel in this case. So we have something missing with view transitions. Yes, we have the routing enabled. Maybe I stopped the. I will come back to that later. Maybe I have the wrong editor open. That could be also a problem. So we will fix that later. Just we don't lose our precious time, and come to the next part, the slicing of the different states here. So we saw that I had different image groups, image pairs in my example. So for this part, they also have an additional way to do this. In this part, we want to separate our header from the other parts in our animation. So we want to animate our header a different way. For this kind, we can slice this header part out, do whatever we want with it. In this case, I move it from the upper to the lower part of the application, and the view transition API also takes note of that the header was at the top part before and is moved to the lower part at the later on, and also enables a little additional animation here. To slice out elements, it's easy, as I say. We just have to add one new property to our corresponding element. In my case, it's the header element that has a header class on it, and we just use a view transition name property and name it how we like. So I also could name it foo. I could name the bar. The naming is just for comparison reasons. So feel free to choose any kind of name. I used here header because we want to slice out some kind of header. So it is it's quite easy to understand. So, and we also have another element. For example, I want to animate the header text in a different way. We just add a view transition name to the header text and also get another element. And for each element we want to slice out, we get another group. So there are the corresponding groups that you saw in my example earlier. We have this view transition group for the rest of the image that is not sliced out, and every sliced piece gets its own view transition pseudo element with an before and after image and corresponding DOM element that we also can manipulate with a different kind of animation. So you can slice up your view in different parts, animate them separately. Maybe you want to spin some objects, maybe you want just to fade them out, move them within your view. Feel free to be creative with your animation styling, and feel free to be very creative with them. So in our part, when we have a look at the animation so far, this is the. Now we have to. Is the right one? Something is broken. Maybe I have to reload. I stopped it. I stopped it. It's always funny when the demo is not doing what I want to do. Did I stop my... No. That's funny. So, yeah, we stopped it. That was the actual frame. So, at this part, I sliced out the different groups. I have my container I want to animate in a different way. I have my primary text, my sublining, and my person. And if we investigate a little bit more, we see that I added some animations and to scale up the person and translate it upwards. So if we go forward in our application, we see that the person enlarges and scales a little bit upwards. So there's no fancy JavaScript or anything behind the scenes. It's pure CSS-based animations. Slice out different parts of your view, and feel free to create very nice and astonishing animations within that. So just keep in mind, we just need the one little part of JavaScript to achieve that. And on the other hand, we have pure power of CSS at our hands or at our fingertips. So to the last part, maybe how much time do I have left? I have no, I've
It's a
lost
half
track.
past 6.
6:30. So maybe we skip that part of scroll-driven animations then. But if we have enough time, I just can introduce a bit about the topic. Okay, scroll-driven animations, on the other hand, are another great addition to the animation space in our web development, because they reduce the amount of JavaScript we need to enable scroll-driven animations. What are scroll-driven animations? Maybe you know the parallax effect, the famous parallax effect, or all kinds of animations that are related to scrolling positions. So maybe an element is at the bottom of our view, we scroll in and it enlarges, and it reaches the top of our screen. It also shrinks down. This sort of animations always needed some kind of JavaScript animation library. We needed to keep track of elements. We needed to keep track. We needed to enlarge and shrink down the element with the help of JavaScript. That's now out of the way. Not as easy as I said. If you have a look at the browser support, it's currently just supported in the Chromium browsers, but also feel free to investigate it, play around with it, and I hope in the near future we will have the full browser baseline support for all these new and nice features. So what is the scroll-driven animation? How is it achieved, or what does it do for us? So when we think about animations in or CSS animations, we have this we have a timeline the animation takes place. So in the regular if we develop a regular CSS animation, we have the document timeline. So we have a defined start and a defined end of our animation. So in terms of scroll-driven animations, we have another timeline we can add, and this timeline introduces the scroll timeline. So the animation duration is not tied to a set start and ending point. On the other hand, it's tied to a defined scroll position within our view. So we have this new animation timeline we can add to our CSS animation, and have these two properties. We have a scroller to indicate if we which element our scroll position is tied to. So if we define nothing, the nearest is taken. So it's the whole root element of our applications, or we can define another element within there, and we have the axis. So if we want to track horizontal or vertical scrolling, we can achieve this with some block inline X or Y indicators. That's quite cool on the one hand. And on the other hand, we also get another view timeline. It's the view timeline. That's what I mentioned earlier, when we have this element that comes into our viewport and leaves the viewport later. and we want to animate this element based on its position within our viewport. We think about the way we would have achieved this in the past. What comes in mind is the scroll indicator, or the different types of positioning we need to track where the element is, so X and Y position. So, and how is it already visible within our view? So in this case, we also can move this JavaScript parts all within the timeline or the animation timeline features here. So we can forget about our JavaScript. We just need a new timeline, and the timeline has also two settings: the axis for Y and X, and start and end point. So an inset. So when we want to start the animation, when how far the element is already within our view. We also have some additional properties we can set on our elements, but I don't want to go into deep detail here because of timing reasons, and also it's just I think we need to play a little around with it. So to show you what scroll-driven animations are capable of, I really would recommend to visit scroll-driven animations.style. It's the official site for scroll-driven animations. So here we just see one little scroll-driven animations in action. So the animation of this that is tied to this little element is tied to my scroll position within the view and has a defined end. And in the lower parts, there are also different cool examples what scroll-driven animations can achieve for us. So maybe here this little nice parallaxing effect, no JavaScript needed, pure power of CSS. We also have a cool tool that I would recommend to play around and get a better feeling for the different settings you saw earlier in my slides. So for this part, we have a little tool to investigate the view timeline that I saw in the earlier part. So in the right, we can play around with the different properties of the view timeline and have a direct feedback on how it affects our elements or the thresholds we have on the upper and lower end of our viewport. So feel free to investigate that. So I think that should be the most important parts so far. And now at the end, a little look in the future, what's ahead of us. For the view transition part, we will hopefully in the nearer future, we will receive an addition to the view transitions. They are called scope transitions. So what will they do for us? The view transition is tied to the whole view. So we transition always the whole view. We have these pseudo elements on the top, right after our root element, and with scoped view transitions, we will have the ability to put these pseudo elements on a lower on lower laying or nested parts of the DOM. So we don't have to transition the whole page, or we don't have to the whole view. So we have the ability to put the animations down to a lower level, but we have to keep in mind that we also have to take Z indexes and overlapping within our animation calculations again. This is around the corner, and also we be a little bit patient with the browser vendors that they hopefully will enhance our APIs within the Firefox and Safari browsers so that we have a common support for our new cool tools that everyone can benefit from them. But for view transitions, I would recommend to already use them today. When the browser has no currently support for view transitions, no transition takes place, so you don't have to be care that there could be any issues for some users of your site that don't have a supported browser for the technology. So I hope I hope you learned something new today, and I could yeah show you some new cool features that the Fugu initiative, or the initiative to make the web a bit more native, brought to us web developers, and also in terms of an enhancing way for an UX that we present to our end customers. So I thank you for your attention, and if you have any further questions, feel free to ask. I will answer them.
Thank you, Sasha. Even so that I'm hearing this talk for the second time, I'm still amazed by the technology. If there are any questions, if you do, please don't forget to unmute your microphone.
Also, if you have if you watch this video later on and you have any further questions about the topic, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn via email or other channels you want to use. I'm always happy to answer your questions, and do not hesitate.
May I ask one question from my side? Thanks a lot for the presentation. I have had a look at all these effects for the scroll-driven animations, which looks really cool. But as you said, it's not supported by most browsers at the moment. Is there some timeline when they're going to introduce that for the rest of the browsers, or is it only like maybe someday? We don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question, and a question I always I also want to know, but the browser vendors are very special about this kind of information. Some for the Safari browser, or for Apple in general, they don't let us know in any particular way when they really want to introduce new features. They also where from or they also, for example, for the push API, they also introduced it as the last browser. For Firefox, for the view transition API, I heard some rumors, but for all the other parts, you just have to wait, or dig a bit deeper in some regions, reach out to the corresponding developers if they can provide any information. Google is very transparent. They have this Google Fugu tracker I showed in my slides earlier, so you have a good understanding what they are doing next, but they are also at the very top when it comes to implement new and cool APIs in our browsers. So I guess we have to wait and sit it out.
Okay, I see. I just don't know, like I don't have experience in this kind of product, so I don't even know how normally it is. Like, do they react to the amount of people who start using that, and then they say, okay, we should probably implement it as well, or
I think they
how
have
does it work?
their own internal schedule
Okay.
for that features. So I
Mhm.
think when it's they also look at the features and look at their current portfolio if it fits for them.
Mhm.
So and if there's a bigger need for the for the API, then there's a certain drive behind the implementation, or you have a certain implementation pressure. But in terms of view transitions, maybe it's not important enough to enhance the animation process. So it's not that high on the agenda. So when you have some security related APIs, maybe they will implement it directly for the next release.
Yeah,
But
sure.
for this kind of, yeah, they think maybe they think it's nice to have, so we can ship it later on.
I see. Okay.
But from the Google side, the corresponding developer at the moment is Pramus Van Dam, and he's very passionate about such kind of new APIs, and also in terms of animation kind or UX related things. So they are very enthusiastic about it. So I hope this enthusiasm jumps over to the to the other browser vendors, but unfortunately, we have to wait.
Okay. And another one question just came to my mind. When I tried to make parallax on my own, it was also such a thing with performance. It kind of was not always that fluent, kind of, and not always the fastest. Yeah, let's say so. How is this one better? Let's say so with the scroll effect, or is it approximately the same in speed or
No,
performance?
it's also much more performant. Or maybe
Okay.
I missed to give that information earlier, but because we have the possibility to develop our view transitions or scroll-driven animations with the power of CSS, we have the performance of CSS. So we do not have to have additional load on our main thread for our JavaScript applications. So we ship that and put it to the CSS part, and the CSS part is very performant, and we don't have to think about any major performance impacts on this end, because the CSS engines are very optimized for every browser.
I see. Okay. Sounds cool. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
Yeah, I think maybe the EAA, the European Accessibility Act, is also making things just a little bit more difficult, because especially the scroll-driven animation is not always accessible. So yeah, just don't hate me for that. I know this is cool, but it is just should be careful with that, and don't use it too much and too fast and whatever, because it can definitely um, make problem with people with epilepsy, for example.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's also, that applies also to every kind of animation that you implement in your applications. You always have to consider that there are people who have epilepsies, for example, and you always to keep in mind to enable your, or make your animations disableable. So to consider the certain flags you have, or you can activate in a browser, for example, the reduced motion flag, that you also react to that and disable any kind of intense animation on your application. And it's also applicable for view transitions. So you can also disable them via the flag, or reduce them in any kind.
okay, if we don't have any more questions, Sasha, may I ask you to stop sharing, because I have one more
Oh,
slide to share.
yes. So
Just give me Just a second. Just want to give you guys information that we have the date for our International Women's Day. It will be the 10th of April. It will be a personal event at the Volkshochschule Salzburg here in Salzburg, and the details will coming online in the next weeks. So don't forget to secure your ticket, and we would love to see you guys there. So if we don't have more questions, just let me have a quick check at the chat. Yes, exactly. We would be happy to see you there on our International Women's Day and spread the word. Tell the guys here in Salzburg. And again, thank you very much, Sasha, for your time and for this very interesting talk. And I'll just stop the recording now.